Good afternoon, everybody. You'll have to excuse me starting with this slightly trite example. But what I'm saying here is that when you're entering a new market, there can be a temptation to simply reuse what you already have. Reusing your existing material can seem like the simplest approach. But as we see here, it's fraught with risks. When you're entering China, this can be exacerbated because if you're working with Chinese partners, there can be pressure to reuse. A common question you come across in China is, what has worked well elsewhere? Can we reuse that? And this is because Chinese business can be quite risk adverse. However, reusing what you have already ignores the fact that you're operating in a very different culture and context, where the beliefs, values, and behaviours are not the same, as we've seen throughout today. This also means that the drivers that inform a purchase are different, and the characteristics that make up a good online experience are not the same. The most effective way to create an engaging experience in the Chinese market and for Chinese consumers is then to either repackage what you have, reposition your offering, or reinvent your offering. This presentation, because I'm last up, aims to leave you with some simple hints and tips about what you can do based on my experience in China. Now, in preparing for this presentation, my colleagues and I conducted a series of contextual inquiries with contacts and consumers across China. This is a process of observing people carrying out various activities and transactions in their normal context. Contextual inquiry is best done face-to-face, but we were able to make it work sharing screens through Google Hangouts. And this illustrated some of the dangers associated with simply recreating your existing online presence and digital strategy. Zara is a company that came up repeatedly in our conversations with Chinese customers, so I've used it as a case study. As many of you will know, Zara recently overtook Gap as the world's largest fashion retailer. One of the secrets to Zara's success is constantly updating its portfolio of products and styles so they can bring the latest looks into stores in a matter of weeks. But another driver of their success has been the company's rapid expansion in China. Excuse me. In its digital channel, Zara has chosen to reuse much of its web design as possible, including format, content, and layout. So to test the user experience of the website, we took a number of customers in China and asked them to select and buy a jumper. As soon as they landed on the site, they almost immediately ran into problems. So, I don't understand what this huge picture is for. Is it an advert or is it an item for sale? If it's an item for sale, why can't I click on it and buy it? I can't even see the whole suit. How do I know if I want to buy it? And more simply, it makes me feel uncomfortable. When you click through from this page, this is what you're presented with. Again, the questions came up. Where's the search box? How can I buy a jumper if I can't find where it is? And the pictures don't show me enough of what I need to know if I want to buy this item. There's not enough detail. I can't see what I need. Finally, you land on the product pages. But if you actually want to look at an item, you have to click on the small text at the bottom of the page. So the feedback is, why can't they show me all these things in one place? Where do I find the size? Where do I find the price? Overall, not happy. One person said it makes me crazy. So, while working for Huawei, I spent a lot of time working with companies and consultancies from overseas to teach them how to present to a Chinese audience. When we're in a Western market, when we're in a situation such as this, you've got a variety of listening styles you've got to entertain. So you've got your very visual learners, you've got your auditory people, you've got your people who want to know the data behind it. But as Charles said in his presentation, in a Chinese market, you are going to find that 95% of the people, at least, are interested in the detail. The techniques that we use in the West, such as making assumptions, jumping to the conclusions, they just won't work with this market. You need to tell a story and you need to be logical. The Zara website, which I just showed you, it does the opposite of this. It doesn't present the full view of things. It makes customers struggle to find the pricing and options that they want. And it doesn't allow comparison of things side by side. The second contextual inquiry we did was with a lady called Amy. And Amy was looking to buy a present for a friend. Now, Amy's typical of many of the new generation of young professionals in China. She and her partner are both in well-paid jobs. She's got a very good disposable income. More of his income goes towards saving for the house, so Amy herself is a very valuable customer for online retailers. And Amy decided she wanted to use eBay for this purchase. Again, eBay has made, as you'll see, very few changes to its online website for China. Much of it is exactly the same. And the look and feel is nice to our view. There's a clear, uncluttered menu. You hover over to see the sub-menus, then you navigate around that way. However, when we were going through this contextual inquiry with Amy, the connection she was using was not fast enough to bring up these sub-menus quickly. And when they did appear, the connection was not stable enough to select the item she wanted. And this is not in the middle of remote China. This is one of the tier 1 cities in a posh apartment. So Amy got increasingly frustrated with this, ended up abandoning her search and reversing back to Taobao, which she knows and loves. Taobao, much better set up for the various speeds you might find. You can see all the sub-menus are available there on the home page. It's much simpler, it's much quicker for her to find what she wants. One of the reasons it's able to do this is because you're writing in Chinese characters in Hanzi rather than in English. So you are able to present a lot more information in a smaller space. And this is one of the reasons why you should really consider not just recreating what you've already got, but go back to basics. Think how you can benefit from being able to present more information in a single space using Chinese. So the insights we took away from this: redesign and rewrite. Don't just straight translate, and assume much slower than advertised speeds in some places. As we know, digital video is alive and well in China. It does work for some customers, maybe predominantly mobile, but certainly in many of the cities, Guangzhou, Shenzhen, China Telecom is advertising 20 megabytes a second as an internet speed. If you run your own speed test, you're going to see it's between 1 and 2 megabytes, and possibly even slower at peak times. So, another example of a company that simply translated its website is Reuters. Our final contextual inquiry was with Stephen. Stephen is a strategy manager at a major Chinese bank. When we asked Stephen where he gets his news from, he instantly replied, Reuters. So we said, okay, show us. Stephen opens his browser, it pops up to MSN, he types in Reuters, goes to Reuters, uses the left-hand navigation bar to find some of the top stories and finance articles. It was only when we said to Stephen, do you know that you could set Reuters to your home page so you wouldn't have to jump through from that he admitted that he actually prefers MSN to read because he finds it easier to navigate. And the reason for this is the layout is much more familiar to him. It mirrors the format of a Chinese newspaper. Titles and indexes across the top, as you'll see with most Chinese websites, such as Sina.com. And by using that familiar format, it's making the audience feel much more comfortable So they're much more likely to stay, to browse, to buy. The other lesson we took from this is MSN has, as well as repackaging their website, they've also repositioned themselves somewhat to handle more serious stories. Now, this may be in response to demand from the Chinese audience, or it may be due to the requirements of the Chinese government. As one of the speakers mentioned earlier, the government has been clamping down on light entertainment, in particular reality TV shows. So the certain amount of content broadcast each day needs to be factual. And if your house is anything like mine, you might say that's a good thing. So, when you're entering a new country, there's always going to be a balance to strike between adapting everything at a high cost and changing nothing and risking alienating your audience. MSN has adapted its website to better suit China because it believes something as fundamental as the way people read needs to be factored in. And as Stephen shows, customers will change their browsing behavior before they change their reading behavior.